I know it's unpopular to say this, but let's just face the reality here.
Welcome to a special episode of the TaraElla report, where I will once again explain why I left both the right and the left, why I'm never going back to either side, and why you should probably join me. This episode is split into two halves. The subject of the first half will be the father of liberalism, 17th century thinker John Locke, and the subject of the second half will be Noam Chomsky. Let's start with Locke. Among some sections of the right, there has been a newfound fascination with Locke. Long used to worshipping another great British thinker by the name of Edmund Burke, often considered the father of conservatism, recently many on the right seem to have swapped Burke for Locke, perhaps because the current iteration of the right doesn't really resemble Burkean ideals of conservatism anymore. Perhaps it's because the right is more likely to defend free speech than traditional institutions nowadays. Anyway, recently, Ben Shapiro recorded a video for PragerU titled, "If We Lose John Locke, We Lose America," in which he explained the basic ideas of Locke and how America's founding fathers were greatly influenced by his work. All that was said in the video was correct. Locke's ideas of individual liberty and equality and the existence of natural rights that a government should not be able to take away, revolutionary back in his own time, have since come to form the political consensus of the majority of people in the West, and we are very lucky indeed for that. Shapiro is also correct that if we do lose the ideas of John Locke, it would be very terrible, because we would be losing liberal democracy itself. Furthermore, he is also correct that the ideas of Locke are currently under attack in many parts of the West, and they must be defended at all costs. Just a few weeks ago, 150 prominent intellectuals signed a letter defending free speech and open debate, published on Harper's Magazine website, and this was swiftly met with severe backlash. It is clear from this that the values of Locke and classical liberalism more generally are no longer guaranteed as the consensus position in Western society. What wasn't discussed was why Locke's ideas are being rejected by more and more people, and how we can reverse this trend. I guess the immediate cause is the rise of critical theory and postmodern thinking, particularly thinking inspired by the dangerous ideas of 20th century thinkers like Herbert Marcuse and Michel Foucault, who saw power in everything and celebrated subjectivity over objectivity. However, given that these ideas have an increasing following, there must be a reason. There must be something that is making people abandon objectivity and commitment to truth and embracing a power struggle worldview where defeating your enemies matter more than the truth. And I think that thing is the culture wars. John Locke's great ideas didn't come out of a vacuum. He had a lifelong commitment to the truth, and as a physician, he had a strong commitment towards science, including precursors to what we would now consider the scientific method and evidence-based medicine. Classical liberal values are indeed the natural values of people who are committed to the truth, and principles like free speech naturally flow from that commitment. When one is instead committed more to destroying one's enemy, one simply cannot stay true to classical liberal values like those of Locke. In that context, postmodern values would make much more sense, which is why conservative politicians and commentators who are equally guilty as those on the left in pouring fuel onto the culture war fire, and especially conservative pundits whose brand are strongly tied to destroying those on the opposite side, should hardly have any claim to John Locke's legacy. They are part of the cancer that is killing classical liberalism. They are not part of the solution. This is, of course, also why I have made the decision to leave both the right and the left behind, because there's no way you can stay committed to the truth and all that it entails when you take a side in these culture wars. Indeed, I believe only those who refuse to participate in the left versus right fight can have any serious claim to the classical liberal heritage.